ActionSA has rejected the Referendum Party's bid to join the multi-party charter because of its association with the Cape Independence movement. In a meeting of the 11 MPC parties on Thursday, the Referendum Party's application to join the charter was discussed and rejected. ActionSA says it would rather leave the MPC than be associated with a divisive movement like Cape Independence. The party is one of the co-founding parties of the multi-party charter in South Africa. Well, let's speak now to ActionSA National Chairperson Michael Beaumont. Mr. Beaumont, good to speak to you as always.
Thank you, Hugo. Always good to be here with you in studio.
So clearly you have something against this referendum movement, if you will. So let's unpack where your objections lie.
Well, let's start from the beginning, if you don't mind. The multi-party charter was set up in August last year. It was set up by a group that's now become 11 political parties. And its fundamental principle is behind the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, which I'll come back to in a moment. But also it is about winning the support of the majority of South Africa so that we can change our country through being in government and fixing the problems that so many South Africans live with. When we received the application from the Referendum Party, ActionSA was very firm with its partners to say, look guys, there's no point in having a discussion here. We work on a consensus basis and we will never support the idea of this party joining us. To circle back to your question, it's constitutionally offensive and historically offensive in South Africa to say that the only solution for the people of the Western Cape is to secede from the Republic of South Africa. We live under a constitutional democracy. That constitution talks about 9 provinces. It talks about a sovereign South Africa. And actually, we are here to unite South Africans. The idea that the only thing that can be done to help the Western Cape is to divide South Africans is offensive to us.
Well, I suppose in part that, if we focus a little bit on the desire for that referendum, it almost speaks to a success of sorts, if you will, of the Western Cape in part, or is it just downright segregation? I mean, what is the reason that they're seeking cessation and that you're opposed to it?
I think we must look at it on 2 levels. I think this is a misguided idea. It's completely understandable that South Africans are very frustrated by a failed national government and an opposition that appears to be comfortable in being an opposition in perpetuity. That is what has brought about the frustration. But this particular idea to say that the solution is secession is completely offensive. And most fundamentally because it's based on this elitism and segregationist kind of idea that the Western Cape is distinct from the rest of South Africa, that it can survive economically and socially separately from South Africa, which I think is entirely false. But, I think it's based on an experience of certain people in the Western Cape as well. Because there's no doubt that those who are arguing for secession tend to live on a particular side of the mountain, and they have a particular experience of Western Cape and City of Cape Town government. And those who live on the other side, in places like Khayelitsha, Langa, Gugulethu, the Cape Flats, have a markedly different experience. And I think the idea that all of the people of the Western Cape, or even near a majority, wish to secede and live under that government is entirely a flawed idea.
Well, for all the faults of the DA, the one thing that the Premier Alan Winde has done right, certainly I'd imagine in your eyes, is that he's refused a referendum to allow for this vote to take place. But there are 20,000 or 30,000 signatures that are behind the idea of a referendum. I mean, what does it say about those individuals?
Well, I think it's in a country of 60 million people, so I think we need to put that into perspective right away. And whatever the DA does or doesn't say about this is entirely their affairs. I'm not a spokesperson for the DA. I'm here to speak about the ActionSA and the multi-party charter point of view on this issue. But from our point of view, it is completely offensive to say to the South African people that part of this country can be hived off to be politically, historically, economically and socially distinct from the rest of our country. And we wanted to be unambiguous about that point. Because the moment we start saying that the only solution is to divide and give up, then we've given up on the project of uniting South Africans. We are seeing it every day as a party. ActionSA is bringing South Africans together from all backgrounds, people who've given up on the political system, and we're bringing those votes to the multi-party charter, as are other political parties that are growing as well. And this is the solution that's going to unseat the ANC in 2024, and it is that is going to save our country, not dividing it.
So, what is at the core of this desire for this cessation? Is it a case of we are different from everybody else, so let's have our own Western Cape province run autonomously of the rest of the country? Or is it a case where certain individuals are desirous of a certain quality of life?
Well, again, I don't want to speak for what their principles are. What I'll speak for is our perception of what they're doing. And it just smacks of elitism, doesn't it? We have a constitution that defines levels of national, provincial and local government. And it actually does ensure that there's local representation in such a way that I might live in a municipality governed by Party A, but my ward is governed by Party B. The same applies to the Western Cape, and that is why our constitution has created particular powers for municipalities and provinces, so that the voices of the people of the Western Cape find expression in their local and their provincial governments. Ultimately, if we are going to change national government in South Africa, it's going to require change more than just outside of the Western Cape, but across the eight other provinces of our country. And that is what we believe the solution is to changing the biggest problems facing South Africans today, not to say that the Western Cape should secede from the Republic of South Africa.
You raise an important issue there, Mr. Beaumont, and that's the issue of being able to change or push for the change that we desire. Now, I'd like to imagine that the majority of the people in the Western Cape are the have-nots. The power that they have lies in the vote. What is stopping them from voting for a party or a government that will look after their interests? Because the conversations that we're repeatedly having around the DA-led government of the Western Cape is that those in Kaelicha, in Guguletu, in Langa, etc., are devoid of service delivery. Those on the right side of the mountain, as you put it, do not have the same conversations or complaints.
Without any question. And I mean, I think before you have that kind of view on my remarks that it could be subjective from an ActionSA standpoint, just look at the election results. Look at what the governing party of the Western Cape today wins in those communities. And it's single-digit percentages. That is not the sign of communities who are saying, thank God for you and for the work that you're doing in governing our communities. We need to make your support stronger. Quite the opposite. And I think what's stopping what you're referring to in the Western Cape is there's been a lack of political options in South Africa. Every year, the amount of people who are voting goes down and down and down. And the majorities that these governing parties have in the different provinces is going down with it. And that is despite the enormous challenges that South Africans face for so many reasons they should have to go out and vote. They are saying it's better not to vote than to vote for one of the established parties. And that is where I believe parties like ActionSA and others have a very important role to go out there and to show those people that you must participate in the political system. If you're disillusioned with the establishment, then you must come out and vote for something new, because we can't continue to have what we've always had and continue to vote the same way and expect that it's going to change.
Well, election registration is still open until announcement or proclamation of the day of the elections. What work are you doing as ActionSA, as the multi-party charter, to get more people to register and obviously come out and vote when that day is indeed announced? Because I think it would make a massive difference to many people in South Africa if a maximum number of people went to vote and there was less apathy.
Without any question. And I think really there's two important numbers that I'd like to share with you. The first number is 1.2 million. That's the number of new people who've been added to the voters' roll since the last election. Many of them are young. Many of them are first-time voters. And we know that many of them are ActionSA supporters as well. We have the remarkable statistic in ActionSA that over 25% of our membership base are unregistered voters, first-time voters, which is unprecedented, and it speaks to the fact that ActionSA is tapping into a market that established parties simply cannot. But then the second number I'd like to share with you is 13 million. That is the number of people who are registered and not voting in past elections. And we need to get out there, as we have been for many months now, to communicate with those South Africans to understand that staying away is not punishing anyone. Politicians love when those people don't vote, because that's what brings failed politicians back into office after the elections. We need to get those people to understand that coming out to vote is how you punish politicians who have failed you. And ActionSA is an excellent vehicle to ensure we can bring about that change, because we are a diverse party, because we are uniting South Africans, and we're growing across all 9 provinces of South Africa.
Now, something that you've been looking at is implementing the principle of decentralizing national government functions within the framework of the MPC. How do you intend to do that?
Well, I mean, I think we've got to look at the functions of national government, and we need to decentralize as many powers as we can into the provinces and into the municipalities, with the important caveat that it can only be decentralized when you've got a province or a municipality that demonstrates it's competent, that it can do the work, and financially it's in a position to go ahead and do that. If you look at government all around the world, decentralization is the model that makes for the most effective government, so that the services are being delivered by a government that is most closely located to the people. National government is miles above the people. It lives in the clouds. There's no direct connection in our electoral system to national government, and that is why in so many ways the retention of functions like policing at a national government level have been an absolute disaster. What we are putting forward, both from an ActionSA standpoint, but together with our partners in the Charter, is to say that where we have provinces that can prove they have the capability to do functions effectively and they have the finances to run those functions should be decentralized to those places so that they can provide the closest contact with the people who need those services.
Now let's look at how ActionSA is working with the other members of the multi-party charter to remove the ANC from government in this upcoming election. I mean, much of what we've heard from various political parties amounts to mere rhetoric. You know, there are all these pictures that are painted, but there actually isn't a plan that is discernible.
Well, I mean, we would differ most fundamentally with that view. I think firstly at the level of the multi-party charter, this group of parties will come together on no fewer than 7 occasions between now and election date to say, individually, this is what we as political parties agree on in terms of how we fix the economy, how we fight crime, how we end load shedding, etc. From an ActionSA standpoint, we will be announcing our election manifesto on the 16th of March, and we're going to make a marked distinction from political parties that I think have come out and made a lot of promises, made a lot of pie-in-the-sky kind of statements, and actually provide South Africans with a roadmap to get from A to B, with B being the place they need to get to for their lives to improve.
We certainly look forward to the 16th of March and appreciate you coming on to the show. ActionSA National Chairman Michael Beaumont speaking to us on the show now.